Hey everyone, Austin here with Carlson Cards. Really excited today to share with you a pretty helpful tips and tricks video. So for this video, I'd like to focus on how to look over your cards for sports card grading. Whether you're sending them to PSA, SGC, another company, I'm going to be here today to show you how to look your cards over to decide whether or not they should be graded. We're not going to be talking price, nothing with money. That's not the topic here today. By the end of this video, my goal is to have you will help you have a really good understanding of what it means to look at a card, kind of the defects you can find, and what what is a good way to judge whether or not I should be grading the card. So for these sports card grading companies, PSA's example I'm going to talk about a lot. That's what I use mostly. There's four main topics they look at for cards to decide whether you are a Gem Mint 10 or an 8 or lower. So the biggest thing is surface on these cards. So you're going to be looking for scratches, dimples, creases, stuff like that. I'll show examples right after this. We'll go 1 to 4 on the list I'm about to give you. The second thing is centering. That is a tricky topic and one I struggle with early on, but again, I'm going to try to give really clear examples with our good friend Mr. Tom Brady here, and then also Michael Jordan down here. Next comes edges, so looking for no damage or whitening on the edges of your cards. And then finally is corners, making sure you have no white corners or dented, any sort of issues on the corners. So again, by the end of the video, I hope you have a good understanding of these four topics, and then I'll try to help you get more 10s like this Peyton Manning, and hopefully a few less 8s like this Michael Jordan. So with that, I'll set the camera back up and let's get right into it. In terms of supplies, you really don't need anything to do this. You can use a good light. What I use and I bought is a lamp with like magnifying right here, you can see, so I'll turn it on. So I'm gonna have it out of view, but you get the idea that it helps you really look at the card well when you're zoomed in on it. You can find these on Amazon for 10, 15 bucks. They're really not an expensive investment. And the other thing is you're gonna want microfiber cloths. I'm not really being cleaning these cards because my focus is gonna be on what to look for. But the cloths are good if you do what I'm about to show you. Card looks good, surface, centering, edges, corners, and then you want to just get rid of the finishing touches, get rid of any dust, maybe minor scratches, any of that sort of thing. So to get started, we'll focus first on surface. So when PSA or these grading companies look at the surface of a card, they're making sure that the card doesn't have any major scratches. So we'll start with this Tom Brady on the right. And to be honest, this card's pretty clean. These are all just FYI cards I wouldn't grade, and I will explain why. These are ones that I bought and they were rejects, right? I didn't think they were nice enough shape. So this card has pretty good surface. You're not seeing any when I hover here. It's really shiny, so it's a little tricky, but you're not seeing any like deep scratches or anything like that. If you flip it over to the back too, it's getting kind of hard to see, but I'll run the light over it. I'm just looking for any dents. You'll see like divots or sometimes creases. And on this card, the issue isn't surface. So that, for me, that would pass a surface inspection when I'm looking at the card. Next, we're going to move on to an example that, in my mind, failed because of surface. So if you can see here, you see all these scratches, on the Topps Chrome refractors here. They're very shiny, but they can get scratches easily. So you can see just littered with scratches, right? So I bought this off of eBay. You always take a risk, and I'm not disappointed in the seller. It's hard, and a lot of people, they don't look to grades. They don't know this, but that card has an issue with surface. There's also another really good example I want to show here. A card could look super clean on the front, right? Pretend these scratches weren't here. You could flip it over to the back and find something like this. If you can see the rippling, it's a little tricky to see, but you see the rippling right where my finger's pointing. It goes all the way across the card. So that's from having the card, typically from having been bent. So, as a kid, a lot of us, right, we had these cards, you'd play around with them. You can't see anything from the front, but from the back, you see that bent part of the card. Like, if I were sending this in, just from my experience, this would probably get a 4, right? It's kind of crazy to think. It looks, not terrible, right? It's nice condition. Except for obviously scratches. I shouldn't say nice condition, but has some issues, but it's not like a vintage card where it's all, muffed up and, it looks like it went through a dryer or something. But this card would get probably a 4, maybe a 5, just because of that crease, and it could be worse. I mean, I've never sent one of these, so I couldn't tell you, but I know this is just definitely one you would not send, and that's due to surface. So hopefully you have a good understanding of what to look for there. There's other sort of issues, right, on the modern cards, and I'm using older cards as an example because they're really clear when they're not good. With modern cards, especially like, let's say for basketball or football, I guess baseball they do it too, but Mosaic is a set. I should have had an example, I apologize for that. But those ones you're looking for more dents in the surface. So if you hover the top and you'll see an indent or something like that, that's what you're gonna notice. It's probably not scratches, it'd be more so dents and stuff like that. You'll get more used to it the more cards you look at, but again, today, let's just get you an overview, an understanding of what to look for. So that's surface. Next, we'll move on to centering. Now, this is a topic that to me was very difficult to understand. I did not understand when the videos I watched what they were saying, what they were trying to explain. But I have really good examples here for you. So we have, like I said, 3 different Tom Bradys we'll look at. So all 3 of those are slightly off-centered. So it's going to be a little tricky to explain, but I have 2 really good examples to show you. So I'll take the middle one and then the right one here. So what centering is basically when these cards are made, from my understanding, they're like stamped down onto a sheet, right? So if you're stamping, you can have variation. You can have a card be printed on a sheet and cut poorly. So if you see on this one on the left, right, what you're looking for is the border of the card. So on this card, you're centering, the way you can tell centering is the thickness on the sides. So you see how there's a photo of Tom Brady, the shine, then you have these black sides, right? So right here you have, from the shine to the end of the card. So it's, again, I'm trying to point, but you see here, like here to here. There's a certain thickness on that, right? So if you look on the left, it's thinner. This is thicker on the right. This is thinner on the left. If you're a beginner, this is tough to see, and don't be upset about that. I'll show you another example. It's going to be a little easier to show the variation. So on the one on the right, it's really thick on the left and really thin on the right, right? So from this photo to the edge of the card. So again, if I show you both of these, this left side is thin on this one. The right side's thick, not as bad as this one, the variation. But you see here, this one's very thick, very thin. So what that does, again, when they're grading these cards, they're going to be looking at this. So you really want to filter your cards and verify that the centering isn't poor. So for example, this card I didn't send not because of surface, because the centering's so bad. For PSA, this would probably be an 8 just because of centering, which makes sense, right? If you're putting in a holder, you couldn't give this a 10. That doesn't make sense. If someone looked at that, they would say that's not a near perfect card. That's definitely has an issue. So you understand that's where they come from with that. And then example here would be, again, I'm going to grab this other left one. The centering's not terrible. It is thinner on the left, thicker on the right. But this, to me, if the card was perfect, it could probably get a 9. So, maybe consider sending it. But all 3 of these are bad. So, it's just going to detract. You just had to keep that in mind. And we'll show you this Jordan. It's got a lot of issues, but you can see here just a different example of a card. This border is all the way around. So you want to make sure this left side is similarly thick as the top, as thick as the bottom, or on the right, and as thick as on the bottom. So the way you can do that, it's kind of tricky, but you look at these corners, see if it makes sense. It's thick and then kind of thin. This one's harder to see because it's really not that badly centered. But it's just another example of a different kind of card where this has the whole frame all the way around and you want each border to be similar thickness. So hopefully that gives you an understanding of centering. Again, I'm not going to be able to give you a perfect overview here. It's going to come from experience. Don't judge yourself too harshly. I just know that at least if you're understanding what I'm saying in terms of what you're looking for, that's going to help you when you're judging cards, right? So that's centering. Next, we'll move on to edges and corners. I'm going to batch these 2 together because they're very similar for what you look for. So on these Bradys, there's not really any edge or centering issues. So what you're looking for is chipping, right? If the border was white because the card was peeling or stuff like that, that would be an issue you're looking for. But on these cards, especially cards with white backs or white fronts, white fronts, you're really not going to find much. Under this light, you can kind of hover and, see if there's corner issues. These cards, I didn't see any, so I'm not going to be able to show you those as an example. But I'll go to the Michael Jordan. So again, edges and centering, edges and corners, you're looking for dents, creases, whitening, chipping. So I'm going to move my camera over a little bit just so you can see a little better. So you see this left corner, right? You see how it's blue, the whole border should be blue. Well, up here it's not, right? It's white. You can see that on the corner. So this would be a very, very poor corner. This would probably, let's say hypothetically the rest of the card was perfect. This immediately would make the card likely an 8 or a 7 just because of how white it is. And then, as you're scanning the border here, you can see here too, it's creased again like that Brady. Again, this is kind of rare. I pulled some extreme examples. You can see it up here too. But these are just cards that, you wouldn't grade, and you can see clearly why, and that was why I took these. So you see this corner as well, right? You see the whitening, chipping. This is more of an edge chipping on the left or on the right, what you'd see here. So, it should be blue all the way around. But you see right where my fingernail is there, it's white. That's chipping. So on a card, that's just what you look for. And this would be the example of edge and corner where you wouldn't want to send the card, right? And your older cards, especially a lot of maybe if you're watching this and you have a collection from when you're a kid, a lot of the 90s, so this is 92, and these are 2000s. They do have issues, especially if you didn't protect them well with these edges and corners. That's likely what'll get you a lot of the time, especially if they were put into I forget what you call them, like the the folders with the pages where you flip them and have all your cards in it. That usually hits your corners and stuff, so you really want to watch that. But hopefully, hopefully that does give you a good overview. Like I said, it's not going to be perfect. I'll probably make more videos on this, and especially like, let's say you practice what I just showed you. You take 10 cards. You can do this with common cards. It doesn't need to be a card you're going to grade. Start to look at this. Start to look at centering. Look at surface. Just practice. Take it under a light. Again, doesn't need to be a lamp like this. You could just even a desk lamp, something like that. Just hold it up to it and just take a look and kind of get an idea. But like I said, I'll likely make future videos here showing, let's say you pull a card out, it's perfect. It's like, right, hypothetically, this one was, very nice shape. You think it could get a 9 or 10, right? That's what we're shooting for. I'll be making a video likely in the future, and I'll probably link it once I do make it here, of what to do in that case, right? So what do we do when this is good? You're going to want to I'll give you a brief overview here. Wipe off the dust, clean it up. Then you want to get in a new sleeve, a card saver. And again, I'll go through this whole process in another video. But hopefully the video here today did give you a good overview of what to look for when it comes to surface, centering, edges, and corners, right? So again, so we can get more PSA 10s and less PSA 8s. So I appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much for joining. If this helped you and you felt like I did a good job explaining, please do like and comment and share. It does mean a lot. These videos I make, I just do for fun, hoping to help you out in some way because I've loved grading. That's my favorite part of the hobby. And I hope you can get there as well one day. It does take time, but I believe in you guys. If this is making sense, you're learning something, you're obviously half the way there. So appreciate it. Thanks again. Tune in later. Appreciate it, guys.